The alien observation ship hung silently in Earth's orbit, its advanced cloaking systems making it invisible to human detection. Inside, Chief Researcher James adjusted his translation device and watched the screens with growing interest. He had chosen his Earth name carefully, hoping it would help him seem more approachable when the time for contact finally came. "Most fascinating," he muttered, his 4 eyes fixed on different monitors showing scenes from around the planet. "They're doing it again." His assistant looked up from her datapad. "What are they doing, sir?" "Watch this human." James pointed to a screen showing a workshop. A man was using a simple drinking glass as a makeshift amplifier for his phone's music, creating a primitive but effective speaker system. On another screen, someone had turned a plastic bottle into a bird feeder, while yet another showed children using sticks and rocks to build a complex toy car. "They turned everything into something else," James explained. "It's not just about survival anymore. They do it for fun, for convenience, for any reason they can think of." The Galactic Council had discovered Earth 3 months ago during a routine exploration of what they had assumed was a quiet sector of space. What they found instead was a planet full of beings who seemed to look at the universe differently from any other known species. Dr. Mark Wells sat in his university office, unaware that he was being watched. The anthropologist was currently using a paperclip to fix his broken glasses, having forgotten his repair kit at home. To him, this was just another normal day of making do with what he had available. The aliens had chosen him as their primary subject of study because of his unique position, a scientist who studied human behavior while consistently displaying the very traits they found most interesting about humanity. "Sir," the assistant called out suddenly. "He's doing something new." James turned his attention back to Dr. Wells. The human had now taken the remaining paperclips and was creating an intricate standing holder for his tablet computer, allowing him to view it at the perfect angle while typing on his laptop. "Log this," James ordered. "Subject demonstrates advanced tool conversion within minutes of initial adaptation. Continues to improve and modify basic objects for enhanced functionality." The control room fell silent as they watched Dr. Wells work. In the span of an hour, he had turned ordinary office supplies into 5 different tools, each serving a specific purpose. To him, it was just another day at work. To the aliens, it was further proof of humanity's unique gift. "I think it's time," James announced, straightening his formal robe. "The council needs to see this in person. Prepare the contact protocols." The next day, as Dr. Wells walked across the university campus, a shimmer in the air caught his attention. Years of scientific training had taught him to notice small details, but nothing had prepared him for what happened next. The air itself seemed to fold, revealing a doorway of light. Through it stepped a tall, 4-eyed being in elegant robes, followed by several others in what appeared to be scientific uniforms. "Dr. Mark Wells," the lead alien spoke in perfect English. "I am called James. We have been watching your species with great interest, and you in particular have caught our attention." Mark's hand instinctively gripped his coffee mug tighter, his mind already calculating how it could be used as a defensive tool if needed. This exact reaction was what had fascinated the aliens for months. "Your species has a gift," James continued, noticing but choosing not to comment on Mark's subtle defensive stance. "You see possibilities where others see only objects. We believe this makes you unique in the galaxy." As students and faculty gathered at a safe distance, phones recording the historic moment, Mark found himself standing straighter. "We just call it making do with what we have," he replied diplomatically. James's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "That, Dr. Wells, is exactly why we're here. The Galactic Council would like to understand how your species turns everything you touch into something more. We believe this gift of yours might be exactly what our galaxy needs." And so began humanity's first official contact with alien life, not because of their advanced technology or military might, but because of their unique ability to see the potential in everything around them. The stark white walls of the Galactic Council's testing facility made Dr. Mark Wells feel like he was back in a university laboratory. 2 weeks had passed since first contact, and now he found himself participating in what the aliens called an assessment of human capabilities. "The next test will begin shortly," announced the automated voice. Mark stood in an empty room, wearing his usual clothes. The aliens had insisted on testing humans in their natural state, without any special equipment. In the observation chamber above, James watched alongside Council Leader Thomas, whose silver-scaled skin reflected the light from multiple monitors. "You're certain about this test?" Thomas asked, his translated voice carrying a note of concern. "It seems excessive." James nodded, all four of his eyes in sequence, their species' version of a confident smile. "Dr. Wells has shown remarkable restraint so far, but we need to see how humans react under pressure." The floor of Mark's testing chamber suddenly opened, and a collection of ordinary objects rose on platforms: a mop, cleaning supplies, office equipment, and various household items. Before Mark could question their purpose, red lights began flashing. "Security breach detected," the automated system announced. "All exits sealed. Defense systems offline. Hostile entities detected in adjacent chamber." Mark's heart rate spiked, but his mind remained clear. He quickly scanned the room, seeing each object not for what it was, but for what it could become. In the observation room, Thomas leaned forward. "He's not panicking. Look at his eyes." "He's assessing," James explained. "Watch carefully. This is what makes humans unique." Mark grabbed the mop first, breaking its handle to create a staff. The cleaning solution and hand sanitizer went into a spray bottle, creating a makeshift irritant. Paper clips became lock picks, and duct tape turned ordinary folders into improvised armor. "Fascinating," Thomas whispered. "He's created a defensive setup in under 2 minutes." The hostile entities, actually training robots, entered the room. They were designed to test various response scenarios. What they weren't designed for was a human who had turned cleaning supplies into weapons. Mark used his makeshift staff to keep distance, sprayed his chemical mixture to temporarily blind their sensors, and used office chairs as mobile cover. Within 5 minutes, all 3 robots lay disabled, taken down by surprisingly effective improvised tactics. "End simulation," James announced, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. "Dr. Wells, please join us in the observation room." As Mark entered, still holding his mop-handle staff, he noticed more council members had gathered to watch. Some looked impressed, others disturbed. "You turned cleaning supplies into weapons," Thomas stated, his tone neutral but his scales shifting color with interest. Mark set down his improvised staff. "I turned them into tools for the situation at hand." "There's a difference." "Is there?" asked one of the concerned council members. "You just demonstrated that humans can weaponize anything." "We can adapt anything," Mark corrected gently. "Whether it becomes a weapon or a tool depends on the need. Give me those same supplies in a peaceful situation, and I'll show you how to make better cleaning equipment." James stepped forward. "This is exactly why we're interested in humans. They don't just see objects as weapons. They see possibilities. In the right situation, everything has potential." The council members murmured among themselves. Thomas raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Wells, we have more tests prepared. But first, I'm curious. How did you know to combine those particular cleaning chemicals?" Mark smiled. "I used to be a janitor during college. Sometimes the best innovations come from everyday experience." This simple statement caused another round of murmuring. The idea that valuable knowledge could come from what the council considered menial work was yet another uniquely human perspective they hadn't considered. "Prepare the next test," Thomas ordered. "But this time, let's see what he can do with medical supplies. If humans can turn cleaning tools into defense weapons, imagine what they might do with actual healing tools." As Mark was led to the next testing chamber, James noticed something remarkable. The human was already studying everything he passed, mentally cataloging each object's potential. To the aliens, this constant assessment might have seemed paranoid. To Mark, It was simply human nature, always ready to adapt, always prepared to innovate. The space station's cafeteria buzzed with activity as Dr. Mark Wells sat with James and several council members, explaining Earth's concept of recycling. 3 weeks into his stay at the Galactic Council's observation station, he had grown comfortable with their presence, perhaps too comfortable. "So humans take broken things and make them into new things?" asked one of the junior council members, her crystal-like skin reflecting the overhead lights. "Not just broken things," Mark explained, holding up his coffee cup. "We try to find new uses for." The station's lights suddenly flickered and died, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. A deep boom echoed through the hall. "Warning," the station's AI announced. "Hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 9. Defense systems offline. Unknown vessels have attached to the station." James's 4 eyes widened in alarm. "Pirates," he whispered. "They've disabled our primary systems." The cafeteria doors sealed automatically, trapping them inside along with about 30 other beings, a mix of council members, researchers, and support staff. The pirates had chosen their timing well, attacking during the station's main meal period. "The defense forces are in the lower levels," Thomas said, his scales now a pale gray of distress. "We're cut off from them." Mark's mind was already racing, scanning the cafeteria with new eyes. "How long until they break through the doors?" 10 minutes, maybe less," James replied. "These pirates have advanced cutting tools. They're after our research data, but they'll take hostages too." Mark stood up, his voice carrying the calm authority that had impressed the council during his tests. "Everyone listen carefully. We don't have weapons, but we have something better. We have an entire cafeteria." The aliens watched in fascination as Mark quickly organized them into teams. Kitchen staff were directed to collect all cleaning chemicals and pressurized containers. Tables were overturned to create barriers. Even the food itself became part of their defense plan. "The floor cleaner here is slippery," Mark explained as he directed a team to prepare traps near the entrances. "The cooking oil is even better. When they break through, they'll be fighting on our terms." James helped Mark modify the cafeteria's hot beverage dispensers into improvised spray weapons. "You've done this before?" he asked. "No," Mark admitted, "but every human child plays at turning ordinary things into tools of adventure. We spend our lives thinking about what-if scenarios." The sound of cutting torches grew louder at the main doors. Mark positioned everyone behind cover, their improvised weapons ready. Some held modified serving trays as shields, others clutched bottles of cleaning spray mixed with kitchen chemicals. "Remember," Mark called out, "aim for their environmental suits and visors. Most pirates don't maintain their equipment well. Look for weak spots." The doors exploded inward in a shower of sparks. Pirates rushed in, weapons ready, and immediately slipped on the treated floor. Their first wave went down in an undignified heap. The defenders struck back. Pressurized containers of carbonated drinks, shaken and punctured, became missiles. Modified kitchen sprayers sent jets of scalding liquid at the pirates' faceplates. Even the food proved useful. Thrown frozen desserts cracked visors, while sticky sauces gummed up weapon mechanisms. "This is impossible," one pirate shouted as his team retreated in chaos. "They're just using kitchen supplies." Mark led a push forward, his team using overturned tables as mobile cover. "The thing about humans," he shouted to the retreating pirates, "is that everything is a tool if you're creative enough." The battle ended quickly. By the time station security finally reached them, the pirates were already contained, tied up with kitchen twine and electrical cords, their weapons disabled, many of them covered in an unappetizing mixture of food and cleaning products. Thomas surveyed the scene, his scales now showing bands of impressed purple. "You turned an entire cafeteria into an arsenal," he said to Mark, "without causing any permanent harm." Mark shrugged, already helping others clean up. "We just used what we had. It's a human thing. We don't always need weapons to defend ourselves. Sometimes all you need is a creative mind and a well-stocked kitchen." James looked at the defeated pirates, then at the improvised tools scattered around the cafeteria. "I believe," he said slowly, "we need to revise our assessment of human capabilities. They're not just adaptable. They're game changers." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tense energy. 2 days after the pirate attack, representatives from 50 alien species gathered to debate humanity's potential membership in the galactic community. The chamber's curved walls displayed images from the cafeteria battle, showing humans turning ordinary objects into defensive tools. Dr. Mark Wells sat quietly in the witness chair, feeling every alien eye fixed upon him. James stood at the speaker's podium, his formal robes gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The evidence is clear." James gestured at the displays. "Humans didn't just defend themselves. They protected council members using nothing but creativity and common items. This proves their value as potential allies." Council leader Thomas, his scales now a neutral blue, nodded thoughtfully. But others weren't so easily convinced. "And this is precisely why they're dangerous." The opposition speaker, a tall being named Robert, another Earth name chosen for simplicity, pointed accusingly at the screens. "They turned cleaning supplies into weapons, food into ammunition. How can we trust a species that sees everything as a potential weapon?" Mark raised his hand politely, waiting for Thomas's acknowledgement before speaking. "If I may, honored council, you're looking at this the wrong way." The chamber fell silent as Mark stood. He pulled a simple pen from his pocket. "This pen," he held it up, "can be many things. Yes, in desperate times, it could be a weapon. But it can also be a tool for creating art, a device for teaching, a way to sign peace treaties, or even a simple back-scratcher." This earned a few chuckles from the chamber. Humans don't see everything as a weapon. We see everything as having potential. The purpose depends on the need. James's 4 eyes blinked in approval, but Robert wasn't finished. "And what about these modifications humans make to everyday objects? How can we trust they won't turn our own technology against us?" A new voice spoke up, Rita, the station's maintenance chief who had worked with Mark during the pirate attack. "Actually, that's exactly why we need them." During the attack, Dr. Wells didn't just think about weapons. He organized teams, used our knowledge of the station's systems, and created defensive tools that stopped the pirates without killing anyone. The chamber erupted in discussion. Thomas raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Wells, answer this honestly. If humans join the council, how can we be sure you won't use your creative abilities inappropriately?" Mark thought carefully before answering. "On Earth, we have something called martial arts. These are fighting techniques that teach both combat and discipline. The first lesson is usually about when not to fight. Humans understand that just because we can turn anything into a tool or weapon doesn't mean we should." "But you're always thinking about it, aren't you?" Robert pressed. "Always looking for ways to transform ordinary objects." "We are," Mark admitted, "but mostly we think about how to make things better, not how to cause harm. The same creativity that lets us turn a cafeteria into a defense system also lets us turn scrap metal into art or broken machines into new tools. It's about seeing potential, not seeking weapons." James stepped forward again. "The pirates we captured have revealed disturbing news. There are more threats coming. Threats our standard defenses might not stop. We need humans not because they can turn anything into a weapon, but because they can turn anything into a solution." Thomas's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. "Perhaps we've been focusing too much on the defensive aspects. Dr. Wells, could you give us an example of how humans use this ability for peaceful purposes?" Mark smiled and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small device he'd made from spare parts. "This is a translator I built from recycled components. It helps me understand species whose languages the standard translators can't process yet, because sometimes the best weapon against fear and mistrust is better communication." The chamber grew quiet as his words sank in. Even Robert looked thoughtful. "I move to continue the assessment period," Thomas announced. but with a new focus. Not on how humans turn objects into weapons, but on how they turn problems into solutions. The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. As the session ended, James approached Mark. "You turned the debate itself into a tool," he said admiringly. Mark shrugged. "Like I said, everything has potential. Sometimes the best defense is just helping others see it too." Emergency alarms blared through the Galactic Council station as Dr. Mark Wells rushed into the command center. 1 month had passed since the debate, and now something much worse than pirates threatened the galaxy. "They're called the Swarm," James explained, his 4 eyes fixed on the main screen showing countless dark shapes moving through space. "They were supposed to be extinct. No one's seen them in 10,000 years." Council leader Thomas stood at the center of the room, his scales a deep gray of worry. "Our weapons have no effect. They've adapted to everything we've tried." The screen showed Council warships firing advanced energy weapons at the swarm ships. The dark, organic-looking vessels simply absorbed the attacks and kept moving. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Mark asked, studying the strange ship's movement patterns. "Living ships," Rita explained from her engineering station. "They absorb energy and grow stronger. They've already taken 3 outer colonies. Nothing stops them." Thomas turned to Mark. "We need human creativity. Your species sees possibilities where we see only obstacles. Help us find a way." Mark watched the swarm ships closely. "These beings adapt to weapons, right? Then let's not use weapons. Rita, can you show me the station's maintenance and supply records?" "Supply records?" Robert asked incredulously from his position at the defense console. "What could those possibly tell us?" "Everything," Mark replied. "James, I need a team of humans, not soldiers. I want engineers, janitors, farmers, anyone who works with everyday systems." Within hours, a dozen humans had arrived through emergency transport. Mark gathered them in the station's largest workshop, surrounded by screens showing station schematics and swarm ship data. "Look at what we have, not what we need," Mark told his team. The station's garbage disposal system, the farming sections, even the waste recycling units. Everything has potential. The humans broke into teams, each approaching the problem from different angles. A farmer named Bill studied the swarm's biological nature. Tom, a waste management specialist, focused on the station's disposal systems. Rita worked with her engineering knowledge. "They absorb energy," Bill said suddenly, looking up from his work. "But what happens if we give them too much of the wrong kind?" Mark grinned. "Now you're thinking like a human." "Rita, what powers the station's waste recycling systems?" "Bacterial processing," she replied. "We use engineered bacteria to break down." "Wait, are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Hours later, Thomas and the council watched in confusion as humans modified the station's waste management systems. They connected garbage processors to transmission arrays, rewired farming systems, and filled storage tanks with what looked like dirty water. "This is your solution?" Robert asked, his doubt obvious. "Fighting an ancient spacefaring race with garbage." "Not garbage," Mark corrected. "Biology." Bill noticed the swarm ships are organic. They absorb energy, but they've never encountered Earth bacteria. We're going to give them indigestion. The first wave of swarm ships approached the station. Instead of firing weapons, the humans activated their makeshift biological defense system. Tanks of enhanced bacteria, multiplied through the station's farming systems and energized by power plant emissions, sprayed out into space. The effect was immediate. The organic swarm ships, programmed to absorb everything they encountered, took in the bacteria. Within minutes, their hulls began to bubble and decay. "They're not used to Earth life," Mark explained to the amazed council. "Our bacteria are evolving and adapting faster than they can. Sometimes the best weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's just life doing what life does." James watched in fascination as more swarm ships began to deteriorate. You turned our waste management system into a defense weapon. No, Mark corrected with a smile. We turned it into a tool. The fact that it stopped the swarm is just a bonus. Never underestimate humans' ability to work with what they have. Thomas's scales shifted to a color no one had seen before, one of profound respect. Perhaps, he said slowly, this is why the galaxy needs humans. Not for your ability to make weapons, but for your ability to see solutions where others see only waste. The Galactic Council's main station buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked side by side. After the initial success against the swarm, Dr. Mark Wells and his team had to scale up their solution to protect the entire galaxy. The station's massive central hall had been turned into an impromptu command center, filled with makeshift equipment cobbled together from everyday items. The swarm is adapting, Rita announced from her modified control panel, actually a cafeteria ordering system rewired to track enemy movements. They're trying to evolve past our bacteria. Mark nodded, unsurprised. Then we'll have to evolve faster. Bill, how are the new cultures coming along? Bill looked up from his workstation, formerly a food processing unit now serving as a bacterial enhancement chamber. Earth bacteria are amazing at adaptation. Every time the swarm changes, our little friends change faster. James watched in fascination as humans transformed more of the station's systems. You're not just fighting the swarm, he observed. You're racing them in evolution. Exactly, Mark replied, studying a series of displays. Tom, show them what you've done with the waste heat systems. Tom, the waste management specialist, proudly displayed his creation. He had converted the station's thermal regulation system into a delivery mechanism for their bacterial weapon. Heat distribution pipes make perfect deployment systems. Plus, the warmth helps the bacteria multiply. Robert, who had opposed humans during the debate, now worked alongside them. His initial fear turned to cautious respect. But how do we protect the outer colonies? We can't reach them all in time. Mark smiled. We don't have to. Rita, show them Plan B. Rita pressed a button on her modified console. The main screen showed hundreds of civilian transport ships. We're not using military vessels, she explained. The swarm expects those. Instead, we're using regular cargo ships, passenger liners, even garbage scows, each one modified to carry our bacterial payload. Hiding our weapon in plain sight, James said with approval. The swarm won't see them as threats. Not weapons, Mark corrected gently. Tools. We're using life to protect life. The station shuddered as another wave of swarm ships appeared. This time, they looked different. Their hulls covered in thick, armored plates. They're trying to shield themselves from the bacteria, Bill observed. But watch this. He activated their latest modification. The bacteria, now enhanced with properties from extremophile Earth organisms, simply ate through the new armor. The swarm ships began to dissolve even faster than before. Impossible, Robert whispered. They're adapting in real time. That's the beauty of Earth life, Mark explained. Our planet's organisms have been competing and evolving for billions of years. The swarm may be advanced, but Earth's bacteria have more experience at adaptation than any species in the galaxy. The civilian fleet launched, spreading out across space like dandelion seeds in the wind. Each ship carried cultures of the enhanced bacteria, along with modification equipment built from everyday items. Humans on board continued to innovate, finding new ways to improve their unusual weapon. Look at these readings, Rita called out. The swarm is actually retreating from the bacterial clouds. They're learning to fear Earth life. James placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. You've done more than create a defense system. You've shown us a new way of thinking. Every civilian ship out there is using modified food processors, waste systems, and heating units to save the galaxy. That's the real lesson here, Mark replied, watching the swarm ships withdraw. Everything has potential. Those ships aren't just carrying bacteria. They're carrying hope, built from the things everyone else overlooked. Thomas, his scales now shimmering with pride, addressed the gathered crowd. Today marks a turning point. Humans have proven that true strength lies not in the weapons we build, but in our ability to see possibility in everything around us. As the modified civilian fleet continued to drive back the swarm, Mark watched the humans and aliens working together, each learning from the other. They had turned an entire station's everyday systems into a galaxy-wide defense network, proving that sometimes the best solutions come not from advanced technology, but from seeing the potential in the ordinary. 1 month after the swarm's retreat, the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber looked very different from its usual formal appearance. The curved walls displayed images not of military victories, but of ordinary objects transformed into extraordinary solutions. Dr. Mark Wells stood at the center, surrounded by his team of human innovators. Today, Council leader Thomas announced, his scales shimmering with ceremonial colors, "We recognize not just the defeat of the swarm, but a fundamental change in how we view the galaxy itself." The chamber was packed with representatives from every council species, along with hundreds of humans who had helped implement the bacterial defense system. Rita, Bill, and Tom sat in places of honor, their creative solutions now legendary among council races. The humans didn't just save us. James addressed the assembly, his 4 eyes bright with emotion. They taught us to see everything differently. A waste management system became a galaxy-wide defense network. Civilian ships became delivery systems. Even garbage became a tool for survival. Robert, once humanity's strongest critic, stepped forward. "I was wrong about humans," he admitted. "I feared their ability to turn anything into a weapon. Now I understand. They don't see weapons, they see possibilities." Mark took the speaker's position, looking out at the gathered crowd. "When we first met, you were amazed that humans could turn ordinary objects into tools or weapons. But that's not our real gift. Our gift is seeing potential in everything and everyone." He gestured to the displays showing their makeshift defense network. "Every species here contributed to our success. We used alien technology, alien knowledge, and alien wisdom. We just helped you look at them in new ways." Thomas raised his hand, and the chamber's lights dimmed. A new hologram appeared, showing a symbol that combined council and human designs. "Today, we create a new classification in the Galactic Council: Adaptive Innovation Specialists. Earth will lead this division, teaching others to see possibilities where we saw only limitations." The announcement was met with thunderous applause. Rita stepped forward, carrying what looked like a modified food processor. "We've already started. This food processor, combined with council technology, can now create medical supplies from basic materials, perfect for emergency relief efforts." Bill showed his contribution: a farming system that used modified bacteria to grow food in space. Tom demonstrated how waste management principles could clean up polluted planets. Each innovation built on simple human creativity combined with advanced alien technology. "But our greatest achievement," Mark continued, "isn't any single invention. It's the change in how we all think. Every problem has a solution. Sometimes we just need to look at what we have differently." James joined him at the podium. "The humans have a saying: necessity is the mother of invention. They've shown us that every necessity carries its own solution, if we're creative enough to see it." Thomas raised his hands for silence. "Dr. Wells, the Council has a question for you and humanity. Will you help establish training centers throughout the galaxy? Not to teach warfare or weapons, but to teach this human way of seeing possibilities." Mark smiled. "We'd be honored. But remember, we're not teaching people to make weapons. We're teaching them to see potential. The best solution isn't always a weapon. Sometimes it's just a new way of using what you already have." The ceremony concluded with a demonstration. The same cafeteria where they had fought pirates now served as a classroom. Humans taught aliens how to look at ordinary objects with new eyes, while aliens shared their advanced knowledge. Together, they created solutions neither could have imagined alone. "You know," James said to Mark as they watched the classes, "when we first discovered Earth, We thought we were studying you. Now I realize you were teaching us all along." Mark watched as a young alien excitedly showed how she had turned a broken communicator into a water purifier. "That's the thing about potential," he replied. "Sometimes the best way to find it is to show others how to look for it themselves." The story of how humans turned everything into weapons had become something greater. A story of how humans helped the galaxy turn everything into possibilities.